Okay, let's get going. This is the past, present, and future of e-commerce on Drupal. My name is Bojan Živanović, and I'm a Drupal contributor from Serbia. And for the past few years, my hobby has been to lead the Drupal Commerce project. Now, this will not be a standard talk where I just tell you to use my technology. I just want to start with a few stories. And my own personal Drupal story starts in 2006. And yeah. So in 2006, I joined a website called Rent-A-Coder. I don't know if anyone remembers this site, but basically, you went there and you could get small coding jobs, like build me a contact form for $30. And I thought if I could do 10 of those, I would have the most amazing summer ever. So I get my first $30 job, and it's to install a CMS on the guy's website. He wants Drupal or Joomla. He doesn't care which one. So I installed Drupal locally first, and it's Drupal 4.7. Looks great. I can use this one. Check. One, yeah. Okay, this is way too loud. So I installed Drupal 4.7 locally. Back then, Drupal didn't have an installer yet, and you got a SQL dump that you were supposed to import. And when I started setting up this on the server, I couldn't get it to work. I don't know if I made a mistake with the import or if there was a permission problem, but it just didn't work. So 5 minutes later, I had Joomla 1.0 running on the server, and I collected my $30 and I never looked back. And that was my first Drupal experience. And this is why I'm here today at Joomla Camp Minsk. Well, it didn't work out that way. The guy used Joomla for about 6 months, and then Drupal 5 came out, and someone convinced him that Drupal 5 was really good. He wanted to switch to that, so he contacted me again and said, "Listen, kid, I really want Drupal this time. Can you make it happen?" And I said, "Sure." And this time, the installer worked nicely, and we got Drupal on the server, and that was the start of my Drupal career. At the same time, on the other side of the world, in Kentucky, a young 23-year-old named Ryan Zarama started working for a company that was selling restaurant equipment called Prima Supply. And he was responsible for their online presence, which back then meant OS Commerce. So at that time, you would have your main website, which was, of course, powered by Drupal 5, and you would have a subdomain where your store would be. Those two sites would never interact. The biggest open source e-commerce solution at the time was OS Commerce. It got started in 2000, and in 2006, it had almost 10,000 installations, so an unimaginably large user base. Of course, people soon realized that having two different systems was not super practical, and the same holds true today. You had to keep OS Commerce up to date, you had to keep Drupal up to date, you had users in two systems, you needed to learn how to theme and extend each one. So Ryan's boss told him, "Hey, can you go and rewrite OS Commerce for Drupal?" And he said, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And that's how the UberCart project was born. The first alpha was released in 2007, and the first stable version for Drupal 5 was released in 2008. It got ported to Drupal 6 in 2009. Funny enough, in 2007, another OS Commerce-inspired system started and got built in Ukraine called Magento, but that's not my story to tell. So both of these systems started from OS Commerce, ended up building something very different. And UberCart had everything. It was a module with almost no dependencies. It had payment gateways integrated. It had shipping modules, file downloads, everything you could want. And it became very popular. It had 30,000 installations at its height for Drupal 6. And that's where I wrote my first contrib modules. I had an affiliate module for Drupal 5 and 6. And for the first time, we started seeing people joining the Drupal community just to use one of its e-commerce solutions. This is a tweet from Lee Rowlands, who tweeted a few years ago that he started with UberCart. And I see that today with Drupal 8, where people tell me they started using Drupal 8 because they started using commerce. Now, in 2008, a revolution started happening in the Drupal community outside of UberCart. The CCK module allowed you to attach fields to any content type. And then the Views module, the Views 2 module got released in October 2008, allowed you to create any kind of listing, filtering on those fields and showing those fields. And this all sounds so obvious when I tell it now, but it was revolutionary at the time because you had to hard code everything. You created database tables, you created your listings, and that's how UberCart worked. And people realized this was a great model, so they said, okay, let's make everything into nodes. Let's make users nodes, let's make user profiles nodes, let's make orders nodes. But we didn't end up going that way because a year later, early in the Drupal 7 cycle, someone introduced the concept of entities. It was Frando, but I never met him. And entities abstracted out the field-specific parts of nodes and allowed us to use them for anything. And people had the idea of rebuilding UberCart to use all of this. And that's how the Uber Core initiative was born, where we said, let's use fields to model our product architecture. And let's use views to create all of our admin listings, to create our product catalogs, and save a ton of code. At the same time, let's slim down UberCart as a project. The payment gateways can be their own modules. Anything that's not used by every site can be its own module somewhere, shipping, file download. That way we can release them separately so that we don't need to maintain it all at the same time. The code base was too large. That was Uber Core. And at the time, Ryan Zarama worked for a new web agency called Commerce Guys. Prima Supply, though, still owned the old trademark. They owned the UberCart name. And they were not happy with this plan because they thought that Ryan was stealing the project away from them. Because they were not coders, and suddenly there was this web agency driving the entire roadmap. So they said, they removed Ryan from the project. They kicked him out. He woke up one morning and his access was gone. And UberCart got ported to Drupal 7 as is. The same Drupal 5 code base got ported, and that became UberCart for Drupal 7. And this new system that used entities and views became Drupal Commerce, which got started in early 2010 and got its first 1.0 release at DrupalCon London in August 2011. And next to Ryan Zarama was one very hungry Serbian. I joined the company 6 months before, after being Ryan's Summer of Code student, and I was already very enthusiastic about the platform. And after that, we had a very productive Drupal 7 cycle. We built Commerce Kickstart, which was the most popular, most successful Drupal distribution for a while. Because Commerce used entities, we had to build a bunch of modules that were entity generic. So we built the inline entity form module to edit entities on another entity. We built the entity reference module so that you could actually reference any kind of entity. We built entity queues, which were the generic version of node queue. And we rebuilt the views bulk operations module so that you could, delete entities and edit them and so on. And you know all of these modules because they became very successful. At the same time, we had some great client projects. We implemented commerce for fashion brands such as Cartier and Kenzo. We relaunched Royal Mail's entire system on commerce. It was led by a young developer called Alex Pott. That's where we met. We implemented commerce for Lush, which was the biggest Drupal commerce site for a long time. Maybe it still is. And it was undoubtedly a success, which brought us to 2014. But something interesting happened then. We accidentally built a hosting platform. I don't know if this ever happened to you. just waking up and having a hosting platform, but it's like having a house party and you invite a few friends over and now suddenly you have 200 people there and you need to call the police on yourself. Well, that's the kind of party. And platform.sh, initially commerce platform, became very successful and it ended up stealing the focus of the company. So commerce guys now developed platform.sh and then one part also did commerce. And we realized that if we wanted to refocus commerce and keep it successful, we needed to split those companies apart. The same way Pantheon was spun out as its own company back then. So we refounded Commerce Guys. Ryan Zarama, Matt Glaman, and myself on February 1st, 2016 created a new company, and we got the right to use the old name. Platform.sh inherited the old company and the old structure, the old investments and debts, and we started from scratch. The three of us, no office, nothing. But we had a new mission. Our mission was to rebuild commerce on Drupal 8. At that time, it was obvious that Drupal 8 was going to be a revolution. And that meant that we needed to start from scratch again. The object-oriented code base meant that we could create a dramatically better e-commerce application. No longer would people just alter bits and pieces. They could swap out entire services, they could write their own plugins, and fundamentally insert their logic and behavior to create something that was very different. They could use Twig for their entire website, including emails. And at that time, we already had the Drupal 8 port going for about a year. As every rewrite goes, of course, this one took longer than anticipated. And finally, we released Commerce 2.0 in September 2017 with 13 release parties all over the world, in Serbia and Slovenia, and France and Germany, Finland, Norway, Denmark, the US, India, Pakistan. It was amazing. This is a cake that they made in our honor in Pakistan, and it looks great. And this brings us to the present day. For the past year and a half, Drupal Commerce for Drupal 8 has been stable, gaining installations and gaining users. And let's see what it's all about, what it can offer to us. The most interesting thing for people right off the bat is the fact that it has a lot more features. Now, if you remember back, UberCart had every feature in the world. It was all in one module. And then Commerce had no features. It was like a very thin framework, and then you would install 24 modules to get the features that you needed. We reevaluated those features to make sure that if you install Commerce, you can use that to develop a site out of the box. So any feature related to the shopping cart, checkout, payments, it got rolled into the main module, and because of that, we removed the need for the top 40 Commerce 1.x contribs, which means that when we released Commerce 2.0, people were immediately able to be productive with it. And just like Drupal 8, we changed the way we develop the software. So Commerce 1.0 was developed like Drupal 7. We released it, and then we abandoned it. Well, not quite, but it was closed for new features. You were not supposed to add new features. You were not supposed to change any text in the UI. You were just supposed to fix bugs, which meant that every time you needed something, it got delayed for the rewrite. We'll fix it in Drupal 8. We'll fix it in Commerce 2.0. And that meant that the rewrite would accumulate this huge list of needed features, delaying it indefinitely. We didn't yet have the smart idea of just releasing features bit by bit, right? But that was the waterfall age that we lived in. And Drupal 8 changed that. Drupal 8 said, we're going to have these amazing releases every 6 months, new features, send us your patches, it's all good. And we did the same for Commerce. We said, from Commerce 2.0, we're going to have a release every month. Because we knew that when we added those 40 modules into Commerce Core, we also inherited their edge cases. And of course, those edge cases weren't handled right away. This is the same problem that Core had when it got a lot of new modules itself. So in the past year and a half, we've had 13 releases, and we'll soon have the 14th one. In that time, we've closed over 400 issues, adding new features, fixing bugs, and interacting with agencies to make sure that they have everything they need. We keep discussing frustrations with users to make sure that it's becoming better. And this is important because it means that people who invest in the platform today will continue to get benefits. They will not need to just rebuild everything in a year or two. The kind of project that really appreciates commerce is a complex project that needs multiple languages, currencies, or to cover multiple markets. Now, in the Drupal 7 days, you could create a multilingual website, but it was not easy. And with Drupal 8, it's incredibly easy to create a website that's going to allow you to sell products from the US and Germany in English and German, in euros and dollars, to charge VAT and sales tax, whatever you need to do in the first 10 minutes, basic setup. And this sounds very easy and logical to us, but to other competing systems, this can be almost impossible or very hard or require a lot of money. So this is the kind of thing that really makes us stand out. Generally, commerce and Drupal have lost the bottom level of the market, right? Everyone who can pay $30 a month to get Shopify will just get Shopify because that's cheaper than their Drupal hosting, so that they can sell their t-shirts. But the others who have more needs that look like this, they really appreciate what commerce has to offer. We reworked the entire product architecture to use basically the terminology that other competing systems use. So you have products consisting of product variations, they have product attributes attached, and we also allow you to have orders that are not backed by product entities, which is important if, for example, you have no product, you're just accepting donations, or maybe because your products live in a remote system and you're just transmitting SKUs back and forth. What's important is that we don't force you into a specific model. We spent months on the promotion system. In the Drupal 7 days, you needed the discount module, the coupon module, and then 5 others. But now it's all built in. You can create a promotion, you can attach any number of coupons to it, you can bulk generate coupons if you want to generate like 3,000 coupons for every attendee of DrupalCon or something. We have buy X, get Y offers. We have anything you can think of, and a lot of work has been done both in the Commerce 2.x cycle and since Commerce 2.0. I'm very proud of that system. We've also rebuilt the way, basically our entire tax system. We do taxes very differently because the old system wasn't that great for VAT. VAT in Europe is very complex and it keeps getting more complex each year. So now when you install Commerce, you get predefined tax rates for the entire European Union, all of the countries. You get predefined tax rates for Canada, for Norway, and we accept patches, so you can add your own. But it's not only that, it's also the relevant logic, because different countries have different ways they determine which rate you should use. Like Canada will do that based on the province. The European Union varies based on whether you're selling physical products or digital products to determine where the place of supply is. And we have all of that logic inside Commerce. So basically we ship a little open source tax cloud so that if you're in Europe, if you're in Canada, basically if you're in a country that has a same tax system, so every country except the US, you can use Commerce out of the box without paying for an external tax service. We also have good support for B2B, and we are continuing to expand that. So this is basically a direct response to difficulties that we had in implementing Commerce for European customers. And of course, Commerce is nothing without its ecosystem, because you will always need at least one ecosystem module to implement your project. And the ecosystem modules follow the same commerce philosophy in the sense that they too have become larger, they too are addressing lessons of the past. We have a price list module that allows you to define different prices for each variation, so that you have prices for different currencies, different stores, for example, your French store and German store, different customers, different customer roles, prices delimited by dates, and so on. It's all there. We have wish list support, so that you can have anonymous and authenticated wish lists. You can purchase things off your wish list. Have a really good shipping module that has support for flat rates. It integrates with, there are other contribs that integrate with a variety of remote APIs. It supports multiple shipments. So for example, one of our partners implemented the site for Interflora in Denmark, and Interflora is the biggest European flower delivery network, so you can choose to send bouquets to like multiple addresses at the same time. Shipping supports that, all your flower needs. We have a really good recurring module, which allows you to charge people every week, every month, every year. You can configure the billing schedule. You can configure if they're going to pay at the beginning or at the end of the cycle. You can offer free trials. All of that is in the ecosystem, being built, being expanded. And I'm highlighting these modules because these are the modules that we in the company are directly responsible for, that we funded along with our partners to make sure that they are really good, and we continue to maintain them every month. And of course there are more elsewhere in Contrib, but I'll get to that. If you already have an existing website and it's not on Drupal 8, we have ready migrations for you. Acromedia has paid the core migrate maintainers to spend many, many months developing the Commerce Migrate module. And out of the box, you can migrate all e-commerce data from UberCart on Drupal 6, from UberCart and Commerce on Drupal 7, and they even have initial migrations for Magento 2 and WooCommerce 3. I'm not sure how good they are because Drupal is the primary focus, but it's there, and they continue to maintain and expand this module. So this is something that we've truly never had as a platform, migrations this good with automatic testing against real data sets and so on. So even if you have an existing site, think about this option. We also have documentation, and I know it's kind of sad that that's a special point, but when we started Commerce for Drupal 8, someone offered us to write a book on Drupal Commerce. And first, I hate book deadlines, and second, this is information that needs to be freely available. So we now have a docs subsite. It's called docs.drupalcommerce.org. It's powered by a GitHub repo, which means anyone can send a pull request to add text or whatever. And we have a team member who is working part-time on the documentation. So we have a user guide telling you how to use Commerce. We have a developer guide telling you how to extend it and develop for it. And I'm really, really enthusiastic about this because this is what will make a difference in terms of adoption. And if you liked the Commerce Kickstart project, we have something similar. Now, distributions on Drupal 8 don't really work on Drupal.org because you cannot package a module that has composer dependencies. So we couldn't port Kickstart to Drupal 8. However, we have what's called the demo project. And if you go to our GitHub page, you have a single composer command that allows you to download Drupal 8 with Commerce and with a pre-built store. So it uses Search API to provide a faceted catalog. It uses Commerce shipping. And we give you a really nice bootstrap-based theme called Belgrade that you are free to steal and use and improve upon. And of course, you get all of the pre-built configurations, so you can look how the twig files work, how the product architecture is organized, everything that's needed so to learn from example. And since this is Drupal 8 and not Drupal 7, we have significantly better configuration management, which means all of this configuration can be deleted in 5 seconds. If you don't like something, just delete it and build your own thing. The problem we had with Kickstart was that the configuration installed from features could not be removed. So I'm really happy with how our demo looks and works, and we'll probably build additional demos in the future to cover additional use cases such as digital downloads or memberships or whatever else. Right now, there are 7,500 sites on commerce on Drupal 8, and that number is rising fast. I think it hit 8,000 at one point, but it keeps oscillating, so I took the more conservative number. We have a commerce room on the Drupal Slack, and it's for a long time, it was the most active room on the entire Drupal Slack. That page with stats is no longer available, so I don't know if that's still true. But what's true is that we have 1,200 people in that room, up from only 500 at the beginning of last year. So it really shows how the community is growing. And in the beginning, I used to spend my day there answering questions. Now there's dozens of people helping each other at any time of the day, and I'm super happy to see that. Commerce has had over 450 contributors since we opened 2.x, and if you also look at Contrib, you will see that there has been at least 500 developers constantly active in the Drupal 8 commerce ecosystem. All of this shows that we've managed to basically reboot the community, because Drupal 8 for us was both the reboot of the code base and the reboot of the community. We also have 113 payment gateways, and out of those 113, I only built 3. So the community has built 110 of them, and over 20 appeared in the last month and a half alone, which is great because here in Europe, every country has their own weird little payment gateway. And this means that there's a larger chance that someone has already done the work for you, and you can just launch your website. Aside from gateways, there are over 200 other contribs that extend Drupal commerce, that provide integration with tax engines, with shipping APIs, that add small features that we haven't gotten to yet, and that number is also growing. So I'm really, really happy with our ecosystem. Of course, the ecosystem is also made up of agencies, and right now, you do not come to us to get a website. We do not build websites, but these people do, and they're amazing. So, and this is not even a complete list, but today you have agencies such as Acromedia and Nymedia and Wunder and Circle and Leap and 1x and Adapt and MD Systems. All of them build commerce websites, commerce modules. They fund development of commerce modules that we ourselves do, and they are active in the community and in the ecosystem. And it really makes me happy because it decreases our buzz factor. And when I say buzz factor, I mean that maybe 2 years ago, Ryan and Matt visited Belgrade, and we went on a bike tour. And we nearly got hit by a bus, a literal bus. And I said, okay, this is our bus factor in action. But even if that bus did hit us, these guys would carry the torch forward. And the fact that it's not even a complete list makes me very happy. And they are building amazing websites, and they are building amazing case studies. So this is a site that was built by 1x Internet for the biggest food delivery in Iceland. And I know this is kind of like big in Japan kind of a moment, but they are truly the biggest in Iceland, and they do something like 6 million euros a year. And you can go there and you can configure recurring shipments of food. They send you meal plans, but you can also say, next week, send me chicken, and the week after that, don't send me any tomatoes. So you can configure your plans week by week, and every week you will get what you need to prepare a meal. They have a REST API, they have a mobile app that uses React Native, and all of that is done on Drupal 8. And then Nymedia has developed a website for the biggest academic network in Norway. They sell books to students, and they have 15 million products inside commerce on Drupal 8. And I must admit, I was very nervous. So they inserted 15 million products, and then they created 200,000 prices in the price list, and it all worked. Another amazing website, and it shows that commerce and Drupal 8 can scale right away with no additional work. And then there is a Chinese case study where they are actually running $1 billion business on Drupal Commerce because they use it for point of sale terminals, and they have like 1 million stores selling fast food in China. It's just crazy. I don't even know what to say here. But this brings us to the future. So this is what we have right now. And I would say it's pretty impressive. But the future is even brighter. We are starting work on an invoice module that allows you to pay by invoice for like 100 orders at the end of the month, PDF generations, all of that. We are implementing a REST API from scratch. JSON API works well for products. It doesn't work so well for checkouts and orders. We continue to discuss this with the JSON API team, but I think that at some point we will need to provide custom endpoints as well, and so far they agree. We are integrating with Layout Builder, which is one of the coolest things that has happened to Drupal in the past few years. Matt Glaman has a patch up that he created with Tim Plunkett, so it's ready for testing. It will be in a future release. And we're kind of rebuilding the company, and which was kind of the big news a month ago. So Commerce Guys is no more. Say hello to Centarro. Remember the story. We started with OS Commerce, moved into UberCart. We rewrote for entities. We rewrote for Drupal 8. We keep rebuilding. The only thing that's constant is the change. Change is at the center of e-commerce. And we needed a brand that was less about guys and more about a single word we could put in front of products. And we realized that is Centarro. So we rebuilt the brand, and we are rebuilding the company so that the things we do right now, the services that we provide, become products. That way, we can sell those products and use it to fund Drupal Commerce development. Because right now, we have 2 developers full-time on it, myself and a day from each team member, and I want to have a team of at least 5 people on it. Because Magento had like 15 people working on it, and Commerce Guys is still like 10 people. Sorry, Centarro. It's still taking a while. So what we're doing with Centarro first is introducing the Centarro toolbox, which has a few tools that help websites so that before they pay us or an agency for support, some system is going to scan their code to make sure they're good. We have the update assistant that will automatically update your modules. It will create a pull request with changes to your Composer JSON file, and that's what we use to automatically update Commerce Kickstart on Drupal.org. We have the quality monitor, which scans your website for patterns, things we found problematic in the past, and then it gives you a report so that these are the things your team can fix before they start paying someone else to look at their code. And finally, we have Insights, which is a sales dashboard with analytics that uses a different backend to provide more than we could do with Drupal, so that you can do funnel analysis and all kinds of interesting Google Analytics kinds of things that you simply cannot do with MySQL as a backend. And with that, we are going to basically twist the arms of our partners so that you get discounts for things such as Stripe or API management or tax automation, basically so that everyone is happy. And this is all already used. So we are using the Centarro toolbox to keep Kickstart up to date and tag automatic Kickstart releases. And the quality assistant is Drupal check that Gabor mentioned. So that is the thing that's scanning your code base for deprecations. We use the same tool, but we add our own custom rules to perform the analysis. And the analytics have actually already been sold to a dozen clients who use it to track how their businesses are doing. So basically small products that we can use to keep funding the platform. We are also going to start offering support, and I don't know, that's never too, it doesn't sound so fun to developers, but it's something that clients sometimes want to hear about, so that if the agency doesn't do something right, there's someone else to pick up the slack. And basically, it's ticket-based support that allows you to prioritize a specific bug report or a feature on Drupal.org, or request something completely new, and you can buy it for your site, for your agency, Once again, this is something that we have been doing for years. It's just that it now has a name and an official price tag on the Centarro website. We are going to package all of that together in the Centarro Cloud, which will be a white-labeled platform.sh, because that's the cloud hosting platform we built, and we're going to add Centarro Toolbox for it. Basically, anyone who buys Centarro Cloud from us is going to get the Toolbox for free. And it's going to be e-commerce optimized for DrupalCon Amsterdam. We're going to put a REST API in front of that so that you can launch headless commerce installations, so that you can use commerce as this kind of a headless e-commerce system. And we're going to tie all of that together as the Centarro Enterprise, which will be commerce plus the REST API hosted for you. Once again, because we already do that. There are some clients that want to get the whole thing from us so that they don't need to pay for development and hosting. They just point their React APIs to us and get the product. They create the orders, and that's it. I'm hoping that once all of this is really live, it's going to really make a difference in how we develop commerce. And we're done. And we have space for a few questions.
Thank you. Two questions, if I may. First, about best practice about migrate IP. We had a case when we import a huge amount of data, hundreds of thousands of products. When we use migrate API, it's incredibly slow, and we change it to direct entity create or update. Can I ask you about best practices about that, because that's maybe a problem?
Well, it really depends. I mean, migrate will always be slower than a direct database query because it needs to invoke the entire API to populate the related data. That's what makes migrate so important. That said, you could tune the database to make sure it's faster. You could make sure everything's running in a transaction. You could change the concurrency the transaction isolation levels. We do have tips and tricks for that, but you would need to join the Slack channel so that I can basically ask Matt to look up our client projects and tell you what the best optimizations are.
Okay, thank you. And second question is about, you told about invoices in next step. Right now, when I decide which to use, when we sell products, we use commerce for that because we have merchants, etc. When we sell services, we usually write our own custom solution because of invoice, custom steps for services, etc. Do you have any cases about selling services using commerce? And is Invoice API in next step would help us in future for that?
And what kind of services are you selling? Is that something like web development, or is it more?
Yeah, kind of.
You could do it. I mean, there's no reason not to. Commerce Invoice would allow you to automatically invoice the client at the end of the month for all of the orders that have been made. You could create orders for each piece of work you want to charge for. It's definitely possible. Whether you want to do it depends on the kind of volume that you have. Like if I was sending one invoice a month, I wouldn't really bother with Drupal. I would just use my internal accounting system, but it's definitely possible. And Commerce Invoice would help. It's going to be released in about a month.
Okay, thank you.
Bojan, getting back to the documentation, looks there are some missing parts in it, like there's no description of shipping plugins.
Yeah.
When do you think it will be completed? Or mostly completed?
Well, the shipment part in the next 2 months, because right now shipping is still in beta, and what's there is good, but we need to do one final level of polish, and that's happening in the next month, basically. And once we do that, we are going to write documentation. My goal in the future is to basically start writing less code and more documentation so that what's already there is well described. So that's probably going to be my focus for something like June. And you are free to join Drupal Slack and annoy me about it. So remind me every day about what I said.
Thank you a lot. Thank you for your speech. I have a question about competitors. So if you speak about Drupal, the commerce is the leader. But as I understand, you research about the competitors, you know its cons and pros.
Yeah.
Can you, for me then somebody come to me and asks, what would you pick to create a e-shop?
Yeah.
So I say, for me, I will use Drupal because I use Drupal since 2011. But can you, what is your opinion? Who is the top players right now, and who you use to take ideas for the commerce?
Well, it depends. There's a difference between what people use and what I like. So my favorite e-commerce system outside of Drupal is called Spree, and it was a Ruby system that got millions in like 2012, and they built a really nice system that influenced my development. But it's really hard to build a business on e-commerce, and they went out of business. So now it's an open source project that basically maintains the Ruby on Rails application that they built. I really like it, but it's a pure open source community niche kind of thing. Nobody actually likes Magento, but they use it because it has 10,000 available integrations available for you in the large ecosystem. People don't get Magento because they like Magento. No, they hate their lives, but they use it because there's that ecosystem ready for them, and nobody will be able to compete with that because like a decade has gone into that, even though it's a very large, complex, slow system, even when Drupal's your competitor. So it's very out Drupal's Drupal in all of its worst cases. Many people have escaped to hosted systems, like Shopify has eaten all of our lunches. Even WooCommerce in WordPress is super scared of Shopify because anyone who can pay, as I said, $30 a month for a website is not going to bother with any kind of custom development. They're just going to do that. That's where the bottom layer of Drupal sites has gone. That's where the bottom level of Magento sites has gone. So when you talk about competitors, you are now targeting more complex websites because that's what people are willing to pay for and host and maintain. And it's a big discussion. We can continue it at the coffee break. I have many controversial thoughts.
More questions?
Yes, thank you for the speech. Do you have any statistics how many sites use headless variant for commerce?
No, right now we have no way of determining that, and it's been an open question, so we will need to figure out a way to track this. And what's interesting about the Centarro toolkit is that when clients decide to share that information, they will send us information on which patches they're using, whether they're headless, so we'll have more insight. And that's why we want to give Toolbox away to people using platform and whatnot, so that we know what our ecosystem is doing. But outside of that, we'll need to think of something. It's in its early days, definitely.
In my practice, before people audit e-commerce solution, they plan SEO for this shop, and headless site, it's Aspire, have a lot of question about SEO, and if you would provide headless e-commerce, you have to answer for these SEO questions, and I don't know how to answer it for all of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, what's interesting is that headless sites are in its early days, which means you need to do a lot of work yourself. People often use Drupal and Commerce because they don't want to spend 2 years developing something. But this is changing, and we need to be a part of that change. So you all probably know the Vue.js framework for JavaScript. There's now a project called Vue Storefront, which gives you a set of Vue components for building an e-commerce website. They've built everything, like facets, checkout, cart. It's installed there, and it's completely free, MIT license. So you could take that and put it in front of an API provided by Drupal, for example, and it would already be easier. We need to have more and more pre-built tools for people to truly start considering these kinds of setups. Otherwise, it's going to stay limited to people with the highest budgets.
So thank you. Vue.js model for Drupal written by Chi from Russia, and I am the second maintainer of this, so I know. Thank you for this.
I think this was the last question. Welcome to coffee break.
Okay, well, thank you everyone.